Today we'll be presenting activities and impact under USAID's CATALYZE EduFinance Latin America and the Caribbean activity. My name is Ignacio Estevez, and I've been responsible for the activity over the last few years. And today, I will be serving both as presenter and facilitator. Just to note, please be aware that the event is being recorded. So it's a pleasure to welcome to this meeting our USAID colleagues, our implementing partners, and our partners that have been an important part of this activity. We have a pretty full schedule today. We're going to kick things off with remarks from USAID's activity manager, Melissa Chiappetta, and the project's chief of party, Amanda Fernandez. We're then going to have Mike Tettleman, the CATALYZE EduFinance lead, follow up and provide an overview of CATALYZE. We'll then move on to presentations from our implementing partners, Opportunity International, Fundación Paraguaya, and CEDEL. They will provide an overview of the activities and the impact they've had over the past 5 years. We're going to have some videos along the way of our partners. They'll be sharing their experience and the value they have seen the project generate. I will then present an overview of the activities with focus on the results and impact CATALYZE EduFinance has had. And finally, we'll finish with a Q&A session. Please note that we're going to be using the Q&A function in Teams. So I ask that you submit any questions that you may have through the Q&A function. We won't be answering these until the end of the presentation. And finally, please note that your microphones have been set to mute. So the only way to ask those questions will be through the Q&A function. Okay, so let's get started. As I mentioned, we'll kick off with Melissa Chiappetta. She's a senior education advisor in USAID's LAC Bureau. And among other, she is the activity manager for CATALYZE EduFinance LAC. Melissa has been working with USAID for 4 years now, and before that, she spent a decade working for private sector development organizations. I'll ask Amanda Fernandez to follow Melissa with opening remarks. Amanda is the executive director and chief of party of this USAID CATALYZE project, and which includes, among a number of other buy-ins, the EduFinance activity that we'll be discussing today. So Melissa, over to you, and then we'll pass it on to Amanda.
Thank you, Ignacio, and thank you all for joining. I'm excited to have this opportunity to reflect on our LAC Bureau buy-in to the CATALYZE activity, which was really an important pilot and learning opportunity for us in the Bureau. And this is especially because non-state or private schools, as they're oftentimes referred to, are very common in LAC, more so than in other regions. We actually find, as a few examples, that in Haiti, 80% of schools are private. Obviously, this is not so much a function of a thriving private sector, but more a result of the failed public sector. But we also see in countries like Guatemala that 50% of lower secondary students are in private schools and 80% of upper secondary school students are in private schools. So the schools fill an important gap in the system. They often provide access to school in communities where no other schools are available. So there may not be public schools in some rural communities, and we find non-state or private schools there. They also target groups such as learners with disabilities that may not be well served in public schools. And we had an opportunity when visiting in the field to see some of these schools in action, which was really great. Yet before CATALYZE was launched in 2019, USAID hadn't really invested much toward improving access or quality of private schools, even though many of them actually essentially reach the same socioeconomic demographic groups that we reach in our other programs. So given that prevalence of the schools and the important gaps they fill, we wanted to see what type of support might prove useful for low-cost private schools through USAID funding and interventions. And so in 2021, the LAC Bureau bought into the CATALYZE mechanism to support pilots in the Dominican Republic, Guatemala, Haiti, El Salvador, and Paraguay. There are essentially two models that we piloted. One is focused on helping financial institutions to create loan products for schools and parents to support school improvements, as well as school fees. The school improvements largely took the form of infrastructure improvements. And then the other one is focused on building enterprises at vocational schools to support hands-on learning, as well as to bring in funds that could be used to reduce school fees or provide other social goods in the communities. It was really interesting to see how some of the vocational schools were using the funds that they earned through these social enterprises through what's called the sustainable school model. And what we hoped to learn was whether the provision of finance increased access for students who would otherwise be out of school. And so whether or not supporting private schools might be another way to reach a lot of the students that we were missing. And also whether it increased the quality of education that students receive. There's oftentimes anecdotal evidence that private schools are higher quality than public schools. This isn't always true according to evidence, but we wanted to see whether or not there were ways that we could support the quality of private schools as well. There were some activity implementation limitations that mean that we don't have robust quantitative results on some of these outcomes, but we do have qualitative results and quantitative results for some of the intermediate result outcomes. So I'm excited to hear more about those from Palladium today and from their partners, Opportunity International and Fundación Paraguay. And I will let them share most of the learning around those results, but I did want to just reflect on a few qualitative lessons that we've taken on USAID engagement with pay for results activities, such as the Catalyze activity. So Catalyze was, continues to be a pay for results activity. And under that activity, what we have learned in our buy-in is the importance of having all of the partners, including subgrantees, on board when identifying what those results are going to be, the key indicators and the targets, and ensuring that we're able to measure against those key indicators and targets. Also, and I think this applies across more than just our buy-in to Catalyze, but across many of our activities, is the importance of setting up incentives for learning and not just for outcomes. We do want to see outcomes, but it's also really important for us to learn, especially through activities that are targeted like this as pilot activities, where we really want to understand better what can happen in private schools. So thinking about ways that we can incentivize that through results. So a result for adapting the activity might be an example. I think this is a key lesson that we'll take forward in other similar buy-ins that we might have in the future. And then third is the importance of using standard indicators whenever possible, just so that it makes it easier for us to report and aggregate results, compare results across our other activities as well, so that we can learn what's different between our support for private and non-state schools versus for state schools. So with that, I will turn over the more interesting learning, I think, to my colleagues at Palladium and specifically to Amanda. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amanda Fernandez. I am the Chief of Party and Executive Director of Catalyze, and I'm thrilled to be here to celebrate the closing of this Catalyze EduFinance LAC activity. I'd first like to thank our USAID colleagues from the LAC Bureau, Participating Aid Missions, and our DC counterparts of USAID, each of whom have provided really excellent leadership through our shared EduFinance LAC journey. And also thank you to the partners and resource partners on the ground for your hard work and dedication to the shared cause, and to our partner financial institutions and schools for recognizing how this opportunity helps advance your own growth and improvement objectives. So this really is a celebration of our collective work. Catalyze EduFinance LAC is really the story of how one private company, the one I work for, Palladium, back in 2019, accepted a unique challenge, an opportunity to use the US government's resources to complete really a tough assignment, to go kind of where few donors have gone before, in using one government's resources to motivate the private sector overseas to support improved private, non-state, low-cost education in rural areas for historically underserved children in other parts of the world, right? With more education for the world's children globally, now furnished by private providers, this should not have been such a controversial task, but for numerous reasons it was. And the task was whether to test, or to test whether increased private capital and private sector involvement channeled to non-state rural education providers serving those low-income communities could make an impact on this quality and on learning outcomes and access. So the challenge overall was really twofold. We had a financing challenge, and then we had the non-state education quality and access challenges. So what did we do? We did market assessments in the Dominican Republic, El Salvador, Guatemala, Haiti, and Paraguay, and we identified a set of promising opportunities, partners, and operating models. And then we co-created the activity itself together with USAID. And we spent a lot of time hammering out with USAID our theory of change for the opportunity, which ultimately ended up in essentially, if you get more private finance to schools that serve disadvantaged learners and youth, then you can provide these actors the technical assistance to improve education delivery. USAID can accomplish a number of objectives at once. First, increase private investment in the education sector, increase access, improve retention rates, and improve learning outcomes for disadvantaged children and youth. So then the task was, okay, we have the theory down. How do we test this in an environment where there just aren't that many examples to build on or evidence about what works? And we worked with USAID to, once again, design a grant and subcontract challenge competition that would identify these actors to try their hand at addressing these growing gaps in finance quality and learning outcomes. And through these competitions, we identified, I think, an appropriate mix of local and international partners who shared our vision for what success looked like, what those results were. And we competed some awards and completed those, and away we went to implementation. But the work wasn't without its challenges. For example, in Haiti, the assassination of the president in 2021 really exacerbated the country's political and economic instability, and it deepened the public health crisis and it emboldened criminal groups, and it really did escalate violence. And we had to redesign our entire program midstream to adjust to this radically different and changed environment. And more generally, I think the financial sector actors in each one of these countries remain traditionally conservative when it came to lending. And our teams used a number of strategies to convince them of the business case to channel more financing towards non-state schools, families, teachers, and regions where our partners were working. And if that wasn't challenging enough, the COVID-19 pandemic broke out just as we were getting started on designing the activity, which shuttered schools and put any field work to identify schools or private sector partners in Latin America to a screeching halt. So, at that point, we found ourselves in a situation with a very large mandate and a relatively small budget. And it really came down to, how do we most effectively spend $5 million across all of these countries to test this theory of change, to address all of the challenges that we identified. And so what did we learn, right? In one case, that sometimes what's needed is to kind of throw out the old and create something totally new. Like in an entirely different curriculum and rural school business model that's more aligned to the workforce needs of the immediate environment of that school, rather than preparing students for a job in the country's capital. We helped one partner, Fundación Paraguaya, replicate their unique approach to providing education appropriate to those living in that rural environment. And we learned new ways to finance schools that are preparing their students for jobs that are most likely given their physical location. In the cases of the Dominican Republic and Guatemala, we provided 12 financial institutions with training and technical assistance so that they could develop the products and risk analyses to make the loans to 65 school owners and parents, mobilizing $3.4 million in private capital towards schools. We leveraged USAID's financing work with an education quality program funded by another donor that reached over 50,000 students through about 222 schools. And we linked a number of these schools with the financial institutions and products developed under CATALYZE Finance. And perhaps in our boldest test, we piloted placing a set of Haitian business advisory service providers on performance-based contracts to facilitate financing to low-income schools from local financial institution providers. Literally everyone was skeptical of this approach given the broader country context. And despite the odds, in the midst of near collapse of the country to criminal groups, these providers identified a set of low-income private schools seeking financing, structured financing for those schools, and then went out and secured loan approval from 5 local financial institutions for 5 schools in under 1 year. So in all cases, we found that the private sector always finds a way. We also found that there's a definite link between private sector involvement, financing delivery, and improved education quality and even learning outcomes. For example, improving a school's environment helps make attending school more attractive, which means kids are in school for longer, which means they receive more education. We also found that financing offered to non-state school teachers can play a role in reducing traditionally high staff turnover. And now that some financial institutions have tested the waters and identified a sound and growing market for education finance, we understand that these financial flows will continue on a commercial basis after our programming ends. And this is the definition of development sustainability via private sector engagement. But above all, what we learned is that despite all of the challenges, is that no matter what condition a country is in, whatever challenges communities are facing, private schools for children aren't going away. They keep multiplying, they prevail. Parents everywhere of all economic situations will always find a way to educate their children and prepare them for the future. Collectively, the non-state education sector will continue to complement and can advance wider public education strategies. So more broadly, the problem of unprepared population to address global challenges, that's also not going away. It's just getting bigger. And we can wring our hands about this, or we can do something about it. The models that CATALYZE EduFinance LAC piloted serve as good initial test cases for future efforts in this space that should logically continue through new USAID programming. We've only just begun to test a few of the many dozens of models that can have even greater scale and impact that you will hear more about later today in our presentation. So on behalf of Palladium and CATALYZE, thank you for being part of our story in education finance and for being here to celebrate the accomplishments of this activity and all of you today.
Thanks, Melissa. Thank you, Amanda. Next, I'd like to have Michael Tellman join us. Mike is the Education Finance Activity Lead for CATALYZE. He's going to introduce CATALYZE and provide an overview of CATALYZE's education finance portfolio. On to you, Mike.
Thank you, Ignacio. And thank you, Amanda and Melissa, for your insightful remarks about CATALYZE's work and impact through the EduFinance LAC activity. And thank you to all for joining here today in a closeout webinar. I would like to thank USAID, the implementing partners, and all the key stakeholders for your amazing dedicated efforts and your commitment to really making a difference for economically disadvantaged learners throughout the LAC region. And I'm excited, I know you all are, for the legacy and the continuing impact of these programs to continue for generations to come. Next slide, please. So I would just like to provide a brief overview of the CATALYZE program that Melissa, Ignacio, and Amanda have referenced. And really, the EduFinance LAC activity is such an important component of CATALYZE writ large. As was mentioned, USAID sponsors CATALYZE. It's a pay-for-results program, and its focus is on mobilizing private sector-led investment and expertise to solve complex development challenges around the world. And so, for example, in addition to education, some of the other sectors that CATALYZE works in include food security, small and medium enterprise development, women's economic empowerment, and helping women access social and health services as well. And CATALYZE works, again, all over the world. In addition to Latin America and Caribbean, work in Africa, in Asia, in the Middle East, and in Eastern Europe. And I would also say that in addition to the implementation, what's already coming through is that CATALYZE and EduFinance focuses a lot on the learning, on really trying to help us all understand how programs focusing on non-state education can scale up, can be sustainable to help economically disadvantaged learners, and to see what works. Next slide, please. So delving for a moment into the EduFinance portfolio itself, as was well noted, we know this. Hundreds of millions of children are out of school around the world or not able to access quality and affordable education. This is a massive funding problem at part of its heart, and that is constraining the growth of non-state schools. It's very important, of course, to always remember and underscore that private schools or non-state schools are a critical complement to the government's priorities around the world for universal access for education. So it is a very important complement to public education. Again, lack of financing is a major impediment to helping students and their families access education. And that's exactly where EduFinance comes in. We help support, through a variety of technical assistance methods, USAID's efforts to scale up non-state education and bring financing to schools, to parents, to communities, and to teachers, and with the purpose of really focusing on improving education and learning outcomes. Next slide, please. So the CATALYZE EduFinance portfolio works in a whole variety of areas, both in terms of implementation, as mentioned, mobilizing private finance with the purpose on improving equitable increase in education, but also we work and focus on learning and building the evidence base for education and learning through a vibrant community of practice called the Education Finance Network, which really serves as a voice to bring out best practices, learnings, connect networks of practitioners, all in this effort to provide evidence and build a case for non-state education. And we are working in 11 countries throughout the world in this area of education, all the way from pre-primary through technical vocation education at the tertiary level, and piloting 7 different innovative models through a variety of established partners. Next slide, please. So this map depicts some of the countries where we're working in EduFinance in Africa and in Latin America, Caribbean. And I, for one, and I'm sure you are too, are excited to see where and how these kind of models and impacts will scale up to other regions and countries worldwide. So just a brief snapshot there. Thank you. Next slide, please. Now, finally, and most importantly, the focus on EduFinance LAC itself. So as Ben mentioned, we're working in 2 key areas around mobilizing private finance for the non-state education sector, with a whole focus on improving access and retention for primary and TVET students, again, with the focus on economically disadvantaged and improving skills and entrepreneurship at the TVET level. That is the key mandates for the EduFinance program. And we're really excited today to showcase these 3 unique models that you're going to hear about from the partners. 1, technical assistance to financial institutions and schools. 2, a self-sustaining school development model with student income generating businesses. And 3, business advisory service providers or financial intermediaries who engage with schools and facilitate school investments. And I would also here like to take this opportunity to thank other implementing partners, Opportunity International, Fundación Paraguaya, and SDEL Haiti for your efforts in this respect. So with that, I'm excited and pleased to turn the microphone back over to you, Ignacio, to take us into a deep dive and delve of the models and then onto the stakeholders. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Amanda. If we could go to the next slide. So I want to move on to our partners, talk a little bit about the work that has been implemented, but really quick, touch on the 3 models that have been implemented. Model number 1, technical assistance to financial institutions and low-fee non-state schools, is being implemented by our partners, Opportunity International. This model works directly with financial institutions to help them develop products that will support schools with infrastructure improvements, a way of improving the quality of the schools, the settings in which the students are participating, and also support them in developing and structuring and implementing school fee loans products so that parents can afford school for their kids. Under this model, Opportunity International is also implementing a model that focuses on education quality. I'll go a little bit more into it. This is a program that focuses on school leadership development and on teacher development. Model number 2, Sustaining School Model, which is implemented by Fundación Paraguaya, focuses on supporting TVET schools to incorporate entrepreneurship into their curriculum to help students improve those entrepreneurship skills, and also to convert these classrooms into revenue productive business units, which is a way for the schools to generate revenues for operations. And then the third model, this being implemented by CEDEL in Haiti. This is a small model that we came on towards the end of the activity. We wanted to get our toes in the country, and we wanted to see how we could support the non-state sector, understanding the challenges that Amanda mentioned earlier. We're working through business advisors. These are individuals to provide one-on-one support to schools and help them work with financial institutions to secure financing, mostly for infrastructure purposes. So with that, let me quickly introduce our partners from Opportunity International that will be presenting the EduQuality work and the EduFinance work. We'll have John Pulido, who's responsible for managing and developing education work across Latin America and the Caribbean region. We'll have Carolina Rey Diaz, who is finance manager for Latin America and the Caribbean. Carolina leads the activities that focus on mobilization of capital through financial institutions. And lastly, Juan Vega, who's a senior technical advisor for Opportunity International's EduFinance technical team, and he's working across Latin America. But before we hand it over to John and the team, I wanted us to go through, I wanted to show some videos of our stakeholders that will share their experience with Catalyze. I want to note that we had a number of videos from a number of stakeholders, and I wish we could show them all, but we have limited time. So my apologies to those that don't make this cut, but we have those videos, and hopefully we can make them available after the event. So we'll start with Luis Ernesto Perez, who is a director at COSAMI.
Yo creo que los principales beneficios que hemos visto es cómo se transforma un colegio, de cómo estaba antes de nuestro financiamiento y cómo está ahora ya con el financiamiento que ha obtenido. Yo creo que ahí es donde podemos ver muy palpable cómo evolucionan, pero también hemos visto cómo se mejora la calidad educativa porque tienen acceso a financiamiento, pueden mejorar su capacidad instalada, mejorar su tecnología. Y también ha sido agradable ver cómo padres de familia aprovechan nuestro financiamiento para obtener descuentos en sus colegiaturas, donde entonces pueden pagar un poco menos porque obtienen ciertos beneficios por hacer pagos anticipados. Y esto pues es parte de lo que nosotros hemos podido ver que ha impactado los financiamientos que hemos tenido. Lo que viene es crecimiento. Principalmente yo diría que estamos ya en un punto donde ya estamos madurando el modelo de atención hacia los colegios. Entonces para nosotros se ha vuelto un reto el poder hacer crecer mucho más nuestra cartera. Recuerdo que antes al principio contábamos casi que de uno en uno los créditos y ahora ya hemos logrado pues que ya haya un volumen más considerable de créditos y para nosotros lo que vemos es un futuro muy prometedor de poder abarcar más instituciones. Creo que también una oportunidad que tenemos es que al inicio estábamos centralizados en dos principales ciudades de Guatemala, que una es Quetzaltenango y la otra es Totonicapán, pero también ya nos alegra de empezar a expandirnos a otras localidades de Guatemala, donde ya empezamos a ver que ya las mismas instituciones nos están buscando. Y esto pues es una gran oportunidad para la institución, donde queremos seguir desarrollando nuevos mercados, seguir desarrollando más instituciones. Entonces yo veo una perspectiva muy favorable. Veo que cada vez estamos pudiendo convencer a más dueños de colegios en los beneficios que va a tener el desarrollar su institución. Cómo puede mejorar su capacidad económica, cómo puede mejorar su modelo de negocios, cómo puede tener una mejor empresarialidad, donde pueda tener mejores ganancias, pero que estas también se vean reflejadas en mejores salarios para sus docentes o sus maestros, y también que esto ayude a que por el mismo costo de colegiatura puedan tener mejores instalaciones, puedan tener mejor tecnología. Entonces yo lo podría resumir en una muy buena oportunidad para nosotros para seguir haciendo negocios. Somos una cooperativa de ahorro y crédito ubicado en el suroccidente de Guatemala, y para nosotros ha sido una excelente oportunidad el haber participado en este programa.
Okay, so that is one of our partner financial institutions. And I wanted to also have two of our partner schools talk a little bit about their experience. So we're going to have Dr. Rosy Ventura Reyes de Bautista, and we will also have Andres Vasquez Ramirez provide us an overview of their experience.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Rosy Ventura Reyes, directora del Colegio Centro Psicopedagógico y Estimulación Temprana Sonrisa para Dios. Le damos las gracias al Banco Europeo por aportar en nuestra infraestructura para tener una mejor educación de calidad para nuestros niños y la sociedad. Gracias.
Sabemos de que en el año 2012 la oferta educativa en el municipio pues era muy escasa. Veíamos que nosotros, por ejemplo, estudiábamos en el básico, después del básico teníamos que acudir a la ciudad para poder estudiar. Sin embargo, por cuestiones económicas, muchos de las familias, muchos de los papás, que básicamente la base de la economía en nuestro municipio es la agricultura, pues ya no tenían tantas posibilidades económicas para poder viajar a la ciudad por los costos de transporte, costo de alimentación y diversidad de gastos que implica el poder ir a viajar a la ciudad de Quetzaltenango para poder continuar los estudios. Pues veíamos nosotros qué podemos nosotros hacer al respecto de esto. Aquí hay una gran necesidad que tenemos que atender. Vemos muchos jóvenes que en vez de continuar sus estudios emigran para Estados Unidos, otros regresan al campo, otros pues no tienen mayores oportunidades de desarrollo. Entonces lo que nosotros hicimos fue hagamos un colegio. Que esa gente que no tiene la posibilidad de poder viajar a la ciudad de Quetzaltenango, pues minimicemos costos y estemos en el pueblo, hagamos un colegio, tramitemos y busquemos en qué podemos apoyarles a la gente acá en nuestro municipio.
Thanks, Dustin. For me, this one was an eye-opener. I think we don't really think about whether or not there's availability of secondary education in towns. This was a large-sized town, and the fact that kids would have to go to another city or a nearby city because there was no secondary education where they lived, and as a result of that, many of them could not move on to secondary was disconcerting. Well, with that said, let me now pass it on to John, Juan, and Carolina so they can discuss a little bit about the first model we showed, the model with working with financial institutions, schools, and the EduQuality program. On to you, John.
Thank you, Ignacio. Hi, everyone. Well, we'll talk about technical assistance to low-fee non-state schools, and I will focus first on the education quality side of it. And In the slide, you can see the number of schools that we have supported, and definitely the way we have improved the quality of education in our non-state primary schools. There are a couple of things that I would like to highlight on this education quality side of our program, and highlighting that it's a 3-year program or a 3-year model aiming at helping schools building their capacity and helping them become more sustainable in the pursuit of their quality education. Of course, we're talking about here different areas or areas of quality that we have worked with our schools. I will focus on these 3 sections that you see in the slide: school development planning, school leader professional development, and teacher mentor professional development. I will start with the first one. School development planning is one of our key aspects. I would say is the heart of the work that we do with our schools, because when schools start working with a program, we start out with a self-assessment process in which the schools select between 3 to 5 priority domains on the areas they self-assess their schools. So we have between a teen number of domains in which the schools self-assess themselves, and they select those areas and they start developing their school development plans. So based on a self-assessment, they move to a school development plan in which they create their goals, they assign different tasks, and this is strategic planning to start working on their quality education improvement. Some of the areas that we have, the focus areas that we have, is school culture, school management, and teaching and learning. For example, in school culture, we have behavior management as some of the domains, child protection, staff engagement and retention, and inclusion and special education. In school management, we have clean and safe environment for learning, teacher recruitment, marketing and branding, and teacher development and oversight. And on the last area, that is teaching and learning, we focus, of course, more with the teacher mentor program here, teaching and learning resources, assessment of learning, and a learner-centered teaching and learning approach, of course, school curriculum and early childhood education. So we move from school development planning to a program focused on school leadership, professional development, and teacher mentor professional development. With these 3 areas, we definitely believe, and we have seen this, that it's more about, it goes beyond training, but it's also about fostering improvement in the regular teacher professional practices, and of course in leadership and management with our schools. In the left part of the slide, you can see those areas of quality that I have just mentioned. And in Dominican Republic, in the DR, it's one of the countries that we worked, and Guatemala, we have seen that between years 1 and 2, our schools have moved from level to level in the improvement of their areas of quality, as you can see here. And in overall, we have 74% of DR schools and 85% of Guatemala schools reporting year-on-year quality improvements, as you can see here. In the specific areas of quality, 62% in school culture and 82% in Guatemala. School management, 78, 73 in Guatemala, 67 in teaching and learning, and 61 in Guatemala, respectively. So these quality improvements we are using our great toolbox that we have that is called Pathways to Excellence. We have a self-assessment tool and in a variety of resources in which the team of education specialists help the schools transition from a point A to a point B, from a point B to a point C, improving their quality of education. So thank you very much for your attention. And the next slide is over to you, Juan.
Thank you very much, John. I think it's a very nice opportunity to present how these technical assistance to financial institutions have helped to increase the access to finance for non-state primary schools, primary education. So what was the situation before the program Catalyze? The financial institution provided to one-to-one schools traditional SMEs business loans with generic loan terms and not really dedicated outreach to schools. What happens after the Catalyze? Well, we have now specialized, the financial institutions are provided specialized school improvement loans with more flexible terms for new segment for them, adapting the underwriting process, providing free financial literacy for schools, parents, teachers, and with a specialized sales approach, focus on longer-term relationship building. You can see the picture in the right are before and after in some school or in Dominican Republic, provided by Cooper Club, a credit union. So now, because of Catalyze, low-fee non-state schools can invest in new classrooms to increase enrollment, improve washrooms, school desk, furniture and equipment, teaching and learning material to improve the learning environment. Okay, but I agree with Melinda, Amanda, and Ignacio that what is important here is to learn why and how things changed. In project management, this is essential. How did the financial institution increase their interest in building long-term alliance with the schools and the education community? And I would mention three key aspects. One is the education ecosystem approach with school leadership academy trainings in partnership between the education ministry and financial institutions to motivate the schools to invest in their own growth and also to encourage schools to consider loans, which is a difficult decision under uncertain times like we are living now. Number two, they provide free financial education for parents and teachers, which is important for the schools because financial education helps parents to manage their money better and to pay school fees more on time, improving the school cash flow through better fee collection. And they also facilitate digital school fee payment in the case of credit unions like Kosami, the first video you saw, at no cost to schools, simplifying and speeding up the payment process for parents. Number two, why should financial institutions go to this sector? It's because they can see a business case, and this contributes to sustainability. So providing a broader access to all financial services, offering schools, teachers, and parents access to loans, savings, insurance, and payment service, integrating these services with the education loans, the financial institutions see a bigger picture about this business case. And last but not least, this is a positive social and image impact for the financial institution, for the community, by supporting education-related activities and engaging in long-term initiatives that benefit the education community, helping schools organize events that foster community engagement. I think these are some key learnings about why the change management, about the sustainability, and about the social impact. So next slide, please. Now we are going to see the Domingo Benitez Reynoso from Banco Aropen, Dominican Republic. It's a new role created to grow and strengthen the schools and parent loan portfolio and develop a strategy to target the education sector, increasing the interest in the education loan. Please play the video.
A raíz del apoyo que hemos tenido como banco Adopen del proyecto Catalyze, hemos garantizado lo que es la creación de un puesto que coordina, organiza, promueve lo que es la parte del crédito educativo. Eso nos ha garantizado lo que es la productividad constante y un seguimiento eficiente, garantizando lo que es una posible colocación puntual, un crédito que retorne y lo más importante, un impacto social positivo.
Next slide, please. How about the parents? The objective was to increase access to finance for non-state primary education. So before Catalyze, the parents received traditional consumer lending, generic consumer loans at a higher interest rate with no favorable terms, with no dedicated product marketing to parents. Now, After Catalyze, the financial institutions, the parents are receiving more specialized school fee loans, standalone education product for school fees, expanded school fee loan access to non-salaried and low-income parents, tailored repayment terms considering the academic cycle and client income because it's important the season, and also about the client service approach, the back to school marketing campaigns to help parents understand their financing options. And again, some credit unions like are offering online fast loan approval. In few minutes, they can apply online and get an approval for their loans. You saw the video of Luis Ernesto from COSAMI. It's a good example of this. And because of Catalyze, low-income families can now cover the educational expenses of all their children, ensure school fees and related expenses are paid on time, and are empowered with more credit options. So what are the learnings around here, this education system approach focusing on parent benefits? Number one is that the school fee loans and free financial education for parents and teachers improve money management and help the schools and the parents. Number two is the access to additional financial services together with the school education loan with a comprehensive offering of savings, free health and life insurance in the case of credit unions, digital payment service and loans are also very important and very welcome for the parent by the parent because they need not just loans but different financial services. And I want to mention that in the case of credit union, this health and life insurance is provided for free as a benefit for the parent. So also important and interesting that the funding for technology and devices empowering learning opening new doors in the future to prepare students for this nearby revolution, including artificial intelligence usage, which will be essential for a student to increase their employment and business opportunities. Next slide, please. Now we will present the video from Claudia Ayala, Copsama, a credit union located in Guatemala, with a strategic targeting of the education sector with financial education for parents, teachers, and school owners, resulting in high interest in education for higher interest in education loan product. Please play the video.
Con el apoyo de Catalyze, Copsama tomó la decisión de atender al sector educativo y nuestra herramienta de acercamiento fue la educación financiera, en donde atendimos a la población estudiantil, a los directivos de los centros educativos y a los padres de familia. Y de esta manera logramos que ellos se interesaran en los productos de nuestra cooperativa.
It's a win-win situation for the financial institution, the parent, the teachers, the students, and the community. Back to you, Carolina. Please go ahead with the next slide. Put the next slide, please.
Thank you, Juan. So, summarizing, the program has been working with a total of 12 entities. 8 of them are from Guatemala and 4 from Dominican Republic. We have a whole matrix of composition of different types of FIs, ranging from banks, going through savings and credit unions, cooperatives, MFIs, microfinance institutions, and NGOs. So we are concentrated in a 50% with savings and credit cooperatives, followed by a 25% of MFIs. So if we go and see the private capital that we have been able to mobilize to the sector, first we could see the capital mobilized to schools through our school improvement loans, SIL, by type of FI. So we have a lead of the disbursements here with 91% through the savings and credit cooperatives, followed by banks with an 8%. Here, we see that MFIs, they are not quite competitive to work with directly with the schools by different reasons. If we see, on the other hand, the disbursement and the capital that we have mobilized to parents with educational needs. So we have a 50% that is concentrated and disbursed by our cooperatives. And here, MFIs have a key role, disbursing 36% of the total amount that we have done as far as now. And banks have a percentage of 15% of the market share. So if we do a general comparison between the different types of FIs, it's good to say that this is a general picture and each entity has different details. But if we see that large commercial banks, they have some strengths. For instance, they have enough liquidity to channel resources to fund EduFinance portfolio. Also, they have created and developed credit and sales skills into their staff, and they have other units that are key in the moment that we need to develop the technical assistance and implement it. But on the other hand, our other institutions as the MFIs and the credit and savings cooperatives, they have other key points as the mission driven that they are. They have a real focus to generate positive impact in the communities that they are working on. And some of them, they work with marginalized and rural communities. Also, the decision-making process with them is quite expeditious. So it's easier and with not so much bureaucracy. And finally, and this is a key point for us, they are willing to invest time and resources to build the entrepreneurial capacity of schools, to make them in a future to be a borrower for the same entity. So next slide, please. Here I will introduce Mercedes Canalda, the CEO of Banco Adopen in Dominican Republic, one of our key partners.
El apoyo que hemos recibido de Catalyze ha sido sumamente valioso. Para Banco Adopen es un proyecto a largo plazo de impactar positivamente en la educación, en la calidad de la educación, en facilitar inclusive préstamos, micropréstamos a los padres de los alumnos para poder mantener la continuidad, la puntualidad de ese alumno que no se ve afectado, ni su autoestima, ni su motivación a seguir estudiando. Ha sido sumamente valioso este acompañamiento y lo valoramos mucho y creemos que va a ser un gran impacto, no solamente a nivel de la institución, sino de la educación del país. Gracias.
Thank you so much. Over to you, Ignacio.
Great. Thank you, Carolina, John, and Juan. I think that just to be very clear, one of the things with this activity is that we're not just talking about loans, traditional loans, but these are loans very much targeted to the peculiarities of the sectors. I mean, when you talk about school fee loans, you see a lot of parents that use very high interest rate credit cards that just help to or take them to a position of over indebtedness. And then with school investment loans, you know, it's really interesting, but schools tend to make investments during the summer break. So you need to have, as Domingo mentioned earlier, you need to have an individual in the institution that is managing this and ensuring that when the schools are ready to make those investments, we, the financial institutions, are talking with them and supporting them and getting the financing they're going to need for those infrastructure investments that will certainly improve the settings in which the students are studying. Let's move on to Fundación Paraguaya. This will be our second model. This is the self-sustaining school model, and is going to be presented by Dr. Martin Burt. Martin pioneered the self-sustaining agricultural school model. He's the founder and CEO of Fundación Paraguaya, and he leads all the development efforts. Before Martin jumps in, maybe if we go to the next slide, we'll have Ramon Vega from Agape, one of our partner schools in El Salvador. who can share some of these thoughts with regards to the CATALYZE support.
Sí, para nosotros este es un proyecto en los que precisamente nos sentimos sumamente orgullosos por el impacto logrado, sobre todo por el valor agregado que el proyecto ha tenido en relación a otros que lo anteceden con otras alianzas. En el caso de este en particular, nuestros beneficiarios han sido impactados más allá del proceso mismo de formación e integrándose a labores productivas en donde ponen en práctica los conocimientos adquiridos, además de responder a realidades del mercado que les permiten conocer las potenciales posibilidades de empleabilidad que puedan tener, ya sea transitando como emprendedores o incluso también formando parte de los talentos humanos de empresas establecidas. Este conocimiento y de cara a los clientes es un valor agregado que no todos los programas tienen.
On to you.
Hello, everybody. Very, very happy to be here. I'm Martin Bird. I'm calling from Paraguay. We're very honored to have been able to participate in this project because as much as we supported other schools, we learned a lot. So thank you to USAID, to the CATALYZE program, to Palladium. But basically, we are helping schools move beyond the traditional learning by doing project-based approach. And we found a way, and we're helping our partners kill two birds with one stone. One is increase school income, but also increase the learning outcomes. We have found that by adding to the traditional learning by doing approach, by adding selling and earning or selling and making money, the learning component of the schools just goes through the sky, through the roof, because students learn in classroom how to do a vegetable garden, then they practice, and this is very traditional, they practice having a vegetable garden in the school. But adding that the students themselves, under the guidance of their teachers, have to go and sell their tomatoes and then have to calculate the earnings and the profit that they make really helps the students understand how the business cycle works and how they will be able to achieve employability upon graduation. So this financially self-sufficient school model has been very well accepted by our implementing partners, both here in Paraguay and in El Salvador, because it reinforces what the schools were originally trying to do, but in addition, generates excitement because there is money coming in through the sale of cheese, sale of eggs, sale of tomatoes. So we worked with 4 non-state schools in Paraguay and 2 educational institutions in El Salvador. And we were very, very encouraged by the excitement because access to education is no longer the major problem throughout Latin America, but quality education is a problem. The problem is that quality education is very expensive. It's very expensive to have a mechanical shop, a working vegetable garden, a good cheese factory. It takes a lot of money, and so we found a way to generate income through learning activities. Next slide, please. So basically, as I was mentioning, we were trying to improve the capacity building in the schools to convert, in this particular case, rural peasants into rural entrepreneurs who understand how to do a business plan, who understand that in addition to growing tomatoes, they have to know exactly who is going to pay for those tomatoes and who is the competition and why their tomatoes are going to be better than the competition's, and who are the buyers in the supermarkets, and what kind of equipment they need, and what kind of human resources they need, and what kind of financial statements they'll need. So every classroom, it's sort of like a university hospital. Every classroom has or every class has a classroom component and then a ground component. But in addition to the traditional technical vocational education, students actually go and sell door to door, and they know how customers react. They overcome their traditional shyness. And once a 15-year-old girl, 16-year-old girl figures out how she will be able to generate for herself upon graduation $1,500, $2,000 a month, she just levitates out of that rural poverty. So turning a traditional classroom into profit centers not only helps schools have the money that they need to buy new equipment, but also reduces the need to have fees for the parents. So basically, that's something that we're very happy in it, and people love it. And so every classroom has a educational business plan. And well, the big changes also happen with the traditional teachers. At the beginning, we had teachers says, no. I only teach kids how to plant tomatoes, but don't ask me to calculate the profit and loss. And that has changed. So we're very, very happy with that. Next slide, please. And so, as I was mentioning, the impact on education, the self-esteem, and the way students and teachers, of course, see themselves. So this model of seeks 100% employability of our graduates through a curriculum that is 100% tuned to what the market wants. And of course, we seek to have every school that we work with to be 100% financially self-sufficient. This is very feasible. And for example, in one school, we had a school that did an agricultural high school that opted out of having a tractor. And we said, wow, and why don't you want to have a tractor? Because the depreciation costs are too high, and that affects my profit and loss. And I can just very easily rent a tractor for when I need it, and I can reduce costs. So that just gives you an example of how professors become very aware of what it takes to have a profitable farm and how they can help the students change their mentalities. Originally, our plan was to have all the students return to the family farm, but we're pleasantly surprised that many students say, I will go back to my father's family farm, but first I'm going to go to college. And so we are seeing a change of attitude. We're working on students and parents and teachers' aspirations, and also a lot of agency and self-efficacy in terms of what people are now, and our students are now saying, you know, I can do it, and it's worth it. So it has to do with motivation and skills. And so it's been a very beautiful, beautiful experience. And there's no difference between a student from El Salvador than a student from Paraguay. And of course, we have experience in working with this model in more than 26 countries. So we're very happy to be contributing to increasing the impact of project-based learning to project-based learning in the first year of high school and to project-based learning that generates money and pays for itself. Next slide, please. So on to you.
Thanks, Martin.
Yeah,
I'll take over. Really quick, this is Amalio Enciso. He's the general manager of Cerrito, which is a school in Paraguay where the model is fully implemented. Before we hear the video, I think if anybody has the chance to go see one of these schools, it's really impressive to see how embedded the kids get into really operating the classroom as a business. I mean, we saw a cheese factory, was a small little low quality cheese production, become a real cheese factory with very high margin cheeses that they're looking to export to other markets now. So it's really impressive, the work that they're doing. And unless you see it, I don't think you can get the full picture of it. But anyways, let me let Amalio talk a little bit about his experiences.
Ok, lo que nos caracteriza desde Fundación Paraguaya, que trabajamos las escuelas, viene a ser nuestro enfoque, ¿verdad? De brindar espacio donde los chicos puedan crecer como personas y que puedan adquirir habilidades que le van a servir en la vida. Y todo eso dentro de un ambiente en donde la escuela también puede generar sus propios ingresos y volverse autosuficiente como lo que estamos haciendo hoy en día, ¿verdad?
All right, so thank you, Martin and Fundación Paraguaya. We'll move on to our final model now, which is supporting the sector through business advisors. We wanted to do something in Haiti. We had something in Haiti 3-4 years ago, but because of the challenges that Amanda mentioned early on, we had to stop work in the country. I was fortunate enough to meet Roch Andre, who's the CEO of CATALYZE Haiti, in an event, and we got to talking and discussing what opportunities may exist. And so we developed a small pilot that we wanted to test. But Roch is he leads the advisory services efforts for the schools in Haiti under the EduFinance project. The firm CATALYZE provides training, advisory services, and support to SMEs in general and financial institutions in securing financing. Roch, on to you.
Thank you, Ignacio. Good afternoon, everyone. It's been a pleasure for us at CATALYZE to work with Paradigm on the EduFinance project in Haiti. Thank you for the opportunity to present some of the work we've been able to accomplish together over the last months. For my presentation, first of all, I will share some background about the context in Haiti. And then second, I will present the work we did and some impacts of the project. And lastly, I will leave it to Ignacio to share some of the lessons learned. First of all, it's really important to emphasize on the context in Haiti through which we worked on this project. The year 2024 is a very complicated year for Haiti with a political crisis getting worse. But you can imagine that if you want a country, it's really important to do something. And that's why to support education. So with the EduFinance project, there is a vision that is perfectly aligned with this need. The idea is that how do we work with some low-income non-state schools and help them unlock funding opportunity? There is a reason for that, because traditionally, private schools and non-state schools, they don't have access to the financial system. The financial system is heavily concentrated in border. This is where you find most of the banks. And most of the time, if you loan, you will have a better chance to secure that loan in Port-au-Prince. You outside of Port-au-Prince, you don't have the same opportunity. The project team wanted to embrace this challenge. We didn't choose to work in Port-au-Prince, but instead we wanted to go to the other departments, such as the South, North, Grandas, and Northeast. The idea is that because the schools that are located in those departments, they have less opportunities. So we wanted to go to them and see how we could help them access funding opportunities. You can imagine the fact that those schools traditionally they don't have such opportunities. If we are able to assist them, that will make a big difference. The reality with those schools, those private schools, is that most of the time, if they have to work on any project, they will need to rely on the owner's funds. And sometimes they need to wait for the students to pay the school fees to get the money they want to work on some projects. But there is a problem with that. First, if you want to wait on the owners to allocate the money, those owners, they don't have enough capital. And second, when it comes to the students, most of the time they don't pay the school fees on time. Sometimes they even pay at the end of the school year. So there is a gap there. And you can imagine if you can work with those non-state schools, you help them access some external source of funding that will make a big difference. And this is where the EduFinance project comes in. We realized there is an opportunity to assist those schools, and we wanted to step in. Throughout this process, the project team provided one-on-one support to the schools. For instance, we help them access their financing needs. Sometimes you have schools that will tell you, okay, I'm interested, but not all of them meet some basic criteria, because you want to evaluate as well if the school is able to repay the loan. This is very important. Another aspect we look at is whether the school is certified by the Ministry of Education. That was a very important criteria for us. On the other hand, the project team also tried to establish some partnerships with some financial institutions. For instance, Fonds is a major financial institution in Haiti. They have branches in all the departments in the major cities. It was really critical for us to work with those financial institutions to make sure that we create some kind of relationship and build a way forward to ensure the project success. Next. Next, please. In terms of impacts of the project, I love to say that one of the reasons why I think the Palladium, the EduFinance project in Haiti was a very important project is, first of all, because the project tries to address an unmet need. This is very important. And the project tries to do something that has not been done before. For instance, when we release a call for application in a really short period of time, we received 34 applications from schools that say that I'm interested, I would like to be part of this opportunity. But obviously, because we had a project design only for 8 months, due to time constraints and because of the scope of the project, we were able to ask 12 schools that met the minimum project requirements. So we worked with those schools, we provided assistance, and we were able to secure for 5 schools. That was also our initial goal. So we're very happy that we were able to meet that goal. But most importantly, beyond helping those schools to secure the loans, we were very happy that those schools, they will have an opportunity to improve the quality of education they are providing to children in Haiti. Almost 1,400 students will benefit from those loans, and the school owners, they will use funds in various ways. For instance, one school, which is called Guapisima, they will use the fund to expand to education, and you can imagine that will provide a better environment for kids to learn. This is really important. There is another school which is in the northern part of the country. They will use the fund to improve solar energy system, and they will also upgrade their computer lab. The students that go to that school, they will have a better access to technology, which will in turn improve the quality of education the kids receive at École Notre-Dame du Perpétuel Secours. There is also another school. It's located in the center of the country, Département du Centre, and this school is building a water fund. This is really important because the kids, they need to have good quality water, good quality drinking water, and then because they have this type of, then you can imagine that those kids, they will have better condition, they will stay in good health because they have good water. So those are some examples of the types of impacts you can get when you do a project like the EduFinance project. Haiti, you decide to step out of your comfort zone and you do something that was never done before. Because in Haiti especially, you don't hear people talk about helping schools to access financing. You don't hear this type of conversation. And this is exactly what the EduFinance project was able to do. So me personally, I'm very happy that I had the opportunity with my team to work on this project. And I think this is a project that shows that despite the challenges, if you have the will, you can bring a difference, you can set the tone. There is chaos in Haiti right now, but at the same time, it was important to have a model like the EduFinance model that happened in 2024 in the midst of the crisis. And actually, we were able to make a difference and we were able to build a foundation, to provide the kids a better future. Ignacio, over to you.
Thanks, Rock. And thanks to all our partners, Rock, especially you, because, we managed to get this off the ground very quickly. I realize that, some people may think that 5 schools is not a huge result, but these schools require a great deal of support. And Rock and his team have really done a great job in a very short period of time. You can see from the numbers here also that there is huge demand in the country. Rock mentions the 34 schools, but those are the ones that responded to some of the questionnaires that we had early on, just to figure out, who we could support. The other thing that is worth noting here is that the financial sector is interested in supporting the schools. I've met with one of the financial institutions there, and they're very keen on working with us. So, when we talk about lessons learned and programming going forward for USAID, I think there's a huge opportunity here. I think we use different models in Catalyze and other areas where we could try to replicate here with the financial institutions, and then with partnership with the BEST, get some really interesting results. Anyways, that's it for our partners. Thank you so much to all of you. I know we didn't have enough time to go into detail, but provide a good overview of things. Now, maybe if we can go to the last slide. So I struggled with deciding exactly what to focus on. There are a lot of numbers in front of you. I thought I'd just kind of do a quick summary of where we are. One of the things that we looked at is how do we determine whether or not the activity has been successful? And so I think it's important to focus on the question, what has changed as a result of Catalyze? Has there been an increase in access? Has quality of education improved? And so has the investment from USAID been positive? And then, as Amanda mentioned earlier, how should USAID expand the work with the private sector, considering some of the results and the learnings from EduFinance? the indicators on the slide here are just some selected indicators that I included. As I noted earlier, I don't want to go through each of them, but maybe just look at Catalyze, and it was born to mobilize private capital. That means get loans out to support development, in our case, improving quality of education and improving access through, as has been noted, school investment loans and school fee loans. One of the indicators that should stand out here, the graphs that should stand out, is something that we see in all of our Catalyze projects, which is that early on the project, the first year or two, we don't see a great amount of capital being deployed. And that's because it takes time to go through the whole process of partnership with the financial institution, developing products, sales approaches, risk issues, and then moving in and getting started. But once things get moving, there's an exponential growth. It's unfortunate that we lost a couple of years here because of COVID and other things, because I would love to see what the next 2 years hold. But in discussions that I've had with our partners, financial institutions, they've all indicated that they're projecting growth for calendar year 2025. So it's already sits in their projections for next year. And just based on these conversations, I think conservatively, we can expect at least a 25% growth in their portfolio. And I think we will continue to see that upward trend over the next years, not only in terms of private capital mobilized, but also in terms of learners reached and schools supported. To achieve sustainability and scalability here, we partner, as Catalina mentioned earlier, with 12 financial institutions. These are institutions that not all will continue to grow in the sector, but I think our key partners and those that have generated the strongest results to date will continue to scale and grow their activities in the space. You heard from Ernesto from COSAMI in Guatemala. We've been working on pilot programs. They're now expanding to branches outside of the main cities in which they're operating. So just with that expansion, geographic expansion, you're going to see growth in private capital mobilized and schools reached and learners reached. And again, just a reminder, this is financing that focuses on improving schools infrastructure and providing parents the financing they need to keep their kids in schools. With Fundación Paraguaya, we've reached 6 TVET schools. One of them, to be upfront, dropped out because of a number of reasons, but they're all moving forward with the model. The changes in curriculum have been incorporated. There's a stronger focus on entrepreneurship. And we see that they are expanding their classroom, the technical areas. I think it's important to note that these schools are establishing a new business with a whole new approach to them. So it does take some time. Martin noted the increase in the revenues that the schools are starting to generate. I think it's something that we will continue to see. As one of the directors told me, we want to see the results in one classroom before we expand the model to others, and we make the investments that are required to grow these businesses. And then our activity in Haiti, as I noted, is new, is generating results. We see that there's a demand. We see that there's interest from the financial institutions to support. And I mean, as you could see from some of those pictures, I wish we had a video, but it was difficult to get a video out of Haiti. But we do have some pictures where you see that there is this need to invest in private sector. There's some other indicators that I wasn't able to include here, things that are interesting in terms of improvements in entrepreneurship skills and retention rates. And we're going to be reporting on these in our final report. And we've seen improvements in these areas also. So we're very pleased with that. I guess in conclusion, and we're not going to have much time for a Q&A session. I'm sorry. Maybe we can get 1 or 2 in. But I think that to the question that I asked earlier, was this worth it? I think that we can comfortably say that the seeds have been laid and that they're generating the results that justify USAID's investment in the private sector. So to answer the question whether this investment from USAID has been worth it, I think it's without doubt yes. And as Amanda noted early on, we've just begun. We expect to see continued success, and we certainly will be recommending to USAID as part of our final report that they continue to invest in this sector because the returns are significantly interesting, significantly high. Maybe we have time for a question or two. I'm sorry we've run out. Let me look over here in the Q&A. Let's see what I can find because we've got 3 minutes. So do you have a ballpark and number of loans that were provided by financial institutions as a result of Catalyze efforts and number of FI products? So the number of loans was on the earlier slide. And I think that it's worth noting that the reporting that we're getting from financial institutions is somewhat in arrears. So we have, with some institutions, we haven't gotten the full last 10 months of loans that have been generated. So it's difficult to give you an answer for that, but that will be on an impact report, which will be finalized in the next month or so. And the number of financial products that have been developed, the focus has been on two, the school investment loans and the school fee loans. But as Juan noted earlier, institutions are looking at the broader ecosystem. So focusing solely on school investment loans may not be very profitable, but when you bring school fee loans, when you bring other products such as payments, such as salary management to the financial institutions, insurance, then you start building this broader ecosystem of products that have become much more interesting and much more profitable for the financial institution. Because let's not forget that we are talking about banks and they do need to survive. So all that to say that the focus has been on those two financial products, but the financial institutions are now seeing that the additional value that they can create from this. As I said, we've laid the seeds. It's growing now. And I think that we'll see some significant returns in the near term. Great to see improvements in the school culture. I'm wondering, do you see these positive culture results sustaining beyond the life of the activity? John, I'll pass that one on to you because that one is related to equality.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, one of the answer was yes. This is a 3-year model with an extension of our second phase that is called phase 2. And also, I guess the core in this matter is the school owners often operate independently without access to a network of peers to share their practices. I didn't mention that at the beginning, but what we do is that we create a network of clusters, school clusters, and they work together and they are formed through the education quality program to bring together small groups of educators and teacher mentors who meet regularly to share challenges and best practices, and they attend the professional development training programs together as a cluster and collaborate on areas of school development planning, training, always led by the team of educational specialists in the region. This program has a very good component of in-person practices. It's blended, but all these in-person sessions are really important through the network of clusters. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. And I see we're at time, but I'd like to really thank Melissa for your leadership, your support, and the USAID education team. Our partners, and not only our implementing partners, but all the partners out in the field, all the financial institutions and the schools that we've worked with. And I'm sure I'm going to leave people out, but basically everybody that's been involved with this project. It has been a great deal of fun, and I know I've learned a lot, and I think we'll have a lot of great outcomes and lessons for USAID to consider as they look at expanding on these activities. So again, thanks everybody. Thanks for participating, and have a great rest of your day.